From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm hurting.
I'm so sorry. Oh, Mark, you're such a killjoy. Why on earth aren't you with me this time?
Well, I had my ticket and I was packed, and then suddenly I decided to trap a nerve in my neck.
That's very selfish of you. I mean, how on earth do you trap a nerve in your neck? Did you sleep funny? Did you twist your neck? Did it happen while you were jogging?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely doing a very heavy exercise session. But in the real world, I think a combination of too many plane journeys, climbing in and out of vans in Uzbekistan, and going to help the needy at pantry packers in Jerusalem by filling up machines with corn flour, I managed to knacker my neck.
Anyway, I've had to travel without you, and I'm really sorry. And I know you're going to be making it out at some future point, hopefully, if your health allows. But for now, listeners are going to have to be stuck just with me.
Yeah, it's becoming a habit, this. I left you all alone in Tashkent, and now I'm leaving you alone in Bucharest. I hope you're going to behave yourself.
I have to say that Bucharest, so far, I've only been here for a few hours. I got in early in the morning to the Romanian capital. The journey in from the airport, once you get through the outer areas that are a bit more, industrial or where there are houses, once we got towards the city centre, was beautiful. You drive past something that looks remarkably like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. In fact, many people refer to Bucharest as sort of a second Paris. And then you drive past some beautiful stately homes, some of which have been converted into hotels and offices. And the hotel that I'm staying in, which is the Novotel, this building was actually originally the Romanian National Theatre. Beautiful hotel. Very happy to be here.
Do you know that in Romania, the building that looks like the Arc de Triomphe is called something like the Arcle de Triomphe?
If you go back through Romanian history, which I'm sure we will be doing in this podcast and hopefully when you come out in an up-and-coming podcast, you'll hear about the French influence in this part of the world. And you can see that in quite a bit of the pre-communist architecture.
And in the flag, it's like the French flag, but with a bit of yellow in it.
Good point. Anyway, do you want to know what I'm up to?
Yeah, so I can feel left out.
So breakfast this morning was great. Really nice buffet. Lots and lots and lots of Israelis in the dining room. Hebrew seemed to be almost 50%, which is very interesting. So I wonder if this is particularly a hotel that Israelis come to. But then I'm off for some culture for the rest of the day.
Oh, that's all right then. I'll join you when the culture's over and the fun begins.
I'm going to absolutely murder the pronunciation here, but we're going to some place called the Zambaccian Museum and the Filipescu Tizianu House. Then we'll be going to the Choral Temple, which is a synagogue, a Bet Knesset, and then we'll be looking at the Jewish Museum and rounding it all off, meeting a very famous chef who works here who happens to be Israeli. So that's what's on my menu. What about your menu for the day?
I will be taking painkillers, putting hot wheat socks on my shoulder, and then hopefully heading to the airport a bit later to come and join you.
Well, I hope you feel good, and I wish you a great rest of the day, and I'll go and enjoy myself.
By the way, if dinner's any good, bring back a doggy bag.
Will do. Hopefully I'll see you in the middle of the night or tomorrow morning at breakfast. Take care, my friend.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Poor old Mark. Anyway, I hope he has a speedy recovery and a speedy flight out. And for all that I laugh at him and joke about him, he is a good mate and I miss him terribly. Anyway, before we get on with the rest of the podcast, it's time for, yes, the quiz question. So it's only one question and it is the following. There are 3 regions in Romania. Moldavia and Transylvania are 2. But what is the name of the third in which Bucharest is located? The answer at the end of the pod.
This is the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Mark David Pod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
My name is Gilbert Scheim. I'm the Gabbai of the Choral Temple of Bucharest. I have also been singing here for many, many decades. My parents were married here in 1971 by late Rabbi Rosen. My grandparents were here before. This is what's left of our history, and I hope to continue this heritage as long as we can walk and talk.
We're on the second level of the ladies' galleries. For those of you unfamiliar with Orthodox synagogues, normally the men are down below and then you have a gallery of ladies, but here there are two levels. Before we get into discussing some of the rest of the architecture, why is there this second gallery, giving it the feeling of a wonderful European opera house?
As far as I know, in the beginning there was one gallery. A second gallery they built later on as of 1891 to 1892. Why? They expanded the building a bit. They just raised the roof a bit and expanded the capacity of this hall, reached for the seated congregation to 604, 605 as far as I know. When I was a little boy over 4 decades ago during communism, thousands of people would pack this place during the high holidays. I was supposed to sing there as an altar boy, and they had to make room for us. We could not reach the Bima area. We really could not do that.
Let's talk through some of the design. I think one of the words that you mentioned earlier was concentric. There's a lot of similarity, repeated patterns. When you mentioned the word concentric, I was even thinking, if you'll forgive the comparison, of something in the Hindu variety.
This is a place that was built in such a way as to break you away from surrounding reality. In Judaism, as you may know or not, the explicit representation of the sacred is banished, as it could be considered idolatry, right? This is why the artists had to come up with all sorts of tricks to represent the abstract divine. God is holy, invisible, incomprehensible, mysterious in Judaism. No living beings has ever seen him, right? How do you represent the abstract divine graphically? You just cannot. But they found all sorts of tricks. In this case, they found those geometrical figures almost concentric, very much resembling fractal art. In fractal art, according to a mathematical formula, you have geometrical figures dividing to themselves to infinity, giving the viewer the impression of mystery, getting lost into hypnotic. They're supposed to take you away from the surrounding reality and make you transcend to the skies into maybe a different reality, or like meditate, like the Kabbalists used to meditate and whatever they did in their days. They came up with this idea of building a flamboyant and shiny synagogues like the ones in Europe in mid-19th century, a musical one that was to be like an opera, a combination between a traditional Jewish service and opera singing, and also very beautiful costumes and a special atmosphere that was supposed to herald the integration of the Jews into this new Europe.
So that's why it's called the Choral Temple.
From choir. We've always had here a choir singing with the congregation and the Chazan during the service.
It's an Orthodox synagogue, right?
It's an Orthodox synagogue. It is built like a traditional synagogue. Okay, there was a scandal here in late 1890s. A splinter group of the community came up with the idea of establishing an organ at the second gallery. And to stop the infighting, they eventually hired a non-Jewish organist to play it. Until 1947, it went on like this. When late Rabbi Rosen came and said, we're Orthodox, we're not playing it. The organ was still here. I used to play around as a child. It was not functioning. Unfortunately, a mistake was made. A wall fell over it, and the organ was completely crushed, the monument itself. And an empty space resulted. In this empty space, we organized a small exhibition area where you can find models of synagogue still in existence in Romania.
Give me an idea of the numbers of Jews in Romania or in Bucharest, say when the synagogue was opened, 150, 170 years ago, you can guess, through to today.
Before World War II, we were about 800 up to 850,000 souls living in Great Romania. More than half our community was unfortunately killed during the war. About 400,000 they mostly immigrated wherever they could after the war. I had members of my family going to British Palestine. Then the communist regime here stopped immigration toward the late 1940s. Some people were even imprisoned as assertion or even killed during Stalinism. After Stalin died in 1953, though, elements of the communist regime here in Romania started to secretly negotiate for the release of some ethnic Jews in exchange for Holstein cattle delivered from Britain by a gentleman of Jewish descent. The Jewish life here in Romania continued thanks to the genius of late Rabbi Dr. Moses Rosen, which I'm a product of, let's say, an amazing character, larger than life. I cannot believe this man existed when I look back in history. This rabbi defied the orders of Stalin in the late 1940s to remove all traces of Jewish life in Eastern Europe. And he continued Talmud Torah here. I was attending here Talmud Torah courses with Rabbi Rosen, singing in the choirs. My parents getting married here. Some people are bold enough to take their children, raise their careers.
1989, the end of communism, a whole new era of hope. But how many Jews are left here today?
Today, about 2,000 local Jews like me are left in Bucharest. Maybe another 2,000 across the country. Mostly, unfortunately, elderly people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm a 50-year-old youngster. We do have children youngsters, not that many. There's a Jewish secular school not far from here. There's a Jewish state theater still very much functioning in Yiddish. That's very interesting. And the museums, the Jewish Community Center, the mikveh, and the ritual bath, right? And the nursing home, which is very important here, and also the clinic. We also continue our daily services, sometimes even twice daily services with our congregants. As difficult as it is to gather all the elderly congregants for all over the city, we still continue to do this. During high holidays, we may reach 200 to 300. On average, about around 40, I would say 50, that would be a good number. Daily, if we gather 10, 15 people in the morning, that's a good figure.
You've grown up here, you're 50 years old, you've gone through good times and clearly bad times. In another 30, 40 years' time, when you're an elderly man here, do you think that the community will still be around, or will you be the last guy to lock the door?
There's no doubt in my mind a small number of Jews will still be in Romania. Not the large numbers that we once were, but for example, there's an increasing population of Israelis in Bucharest and Romania generally. So who knows? Anyway, I'm certain a small number of Jews will still be here. I have friends with children, and they will be here. But the large numbers that we once were, I don't think so.
Hello, my name is Ilana Mitu. I am a guide at the National Museum of Art of Romania, and we're here today at the Zambaccian Museum. It used to be a private art collection that today entered the public domain, also the public property.
When we were talking before, we were laughing about the fact that everybody in Romania, their last name finishes with Escu, but Zambaccian, whose home this is, that sounds like a very different name to me.
Right, it's because it's very simple. It's because he's not Romanian. Grigore Zambaccian is Armenian born. He has an Armenian background and origin. His parents moved to Romania, to Constanța, a city close to the seaside, in the 1870s, and he was born in Constanța. So probably this is why he loves marines, he loves the presence of the sea. To quote Stendhal, close to the sea, there is no place for small things.
So we're in his home. We saw his office. A little bit later on, I'm going to have a wander upstairs and see some of his private quarters. But the main part of this home is filled with Romanian art. Is there something specific that unites Romanian art, or is it just varied like all other forms?
He did a very unified collection, and this shows not only his taste, but also his amazing eye and feeling, because he knew how to depict and how to observe what is the most representative for Romanian art and for masterpieces, because it's a collection mainly of masterpieces. Everything is very good. I would say in Romania and also in his collection, you can find quite a lot of landscapes, especially end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century. Many of the Romanian painters traveled to France, to Barbizon, or to the south of France. We can see green, rich landscapes coming from those parts. But there are also Romanian painters that depicted the Romanian shores, the Bulgarian shores, that are more arid. They don't look that green. It's very nice to see the difference.
One of the things that we've been talking about is the depiction of the peasant, the person who did the real work in agriculture. Explain a little bit about the struggle of that depiction amongst the artists.
I think the big struggle for artists is whether they should represent an ideal version of the peasant. Let's say Grigorescu shows a Romanian peasant, a lady sleeping in the grass, surrounded by flowers. She's thin, long, relaxed. A peasant normally works and is tired and doesn't have time to just sit and spend free time on the grass. So this is a version of the representation of rurality. And there's another version where painters want to show reality. They want to show the true colors and the true everyday life of a peasant who works, who struggles with hunger. Sometimes, especially at the beginning of the century, there used to be a big hunger here.
You're smiling, your eyes light up when you talk about art. What does this mean for you deep down inside, especially from the Romanian perspective?
What makes me, what makes me love art? Probably understanding is what brings me joy. The images, but also the story behind, and being able to see them together and to put stories together, it's quite a big satisfaction, I think.
If anybody wants to know more about this collection and the broader national collection, how can they do so?
We've got a website, mnar.art.ro. There are some special places on the website where you can discover the collections, because we have many collections, both Romanian art and European art. We will soon open a decorative art department.
Thank you so much for your time, and more important than that, thank you for your passion and your warmth in presenting this collection.
I am very happy that you liked it, and please come again, also in other museums.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris.
Marmaros Bank used to be a bank that started its activity in 1848 as a small office, but it grew so fast and having stations in New York. My name is Carmen Hanayovitsu, and we are in the Museum for the Jewish History and Culture of the Jews of Romania, called Nicolae Cajal.
It looks to me as though it is or was a synagogue.
It was a synagogue. The name is Ahdut Kodesh, the Holy Union Synagogue. We are placed on the street Mamular number 3. We invite you to visit us whenever you can. It was active until 1966. It is a small, beautifully decorated synagogue, and we are very proud of it.
Can you describe the style of this synagogue? I am not a man of architecture, but I hope you can.
The model keeps the model of Vienna architectural synagogues. The decoration is Moorish style. I don't know why you would have an Ashkenazi synagogue with a Moorish decoration, but it's very vivid and it has a little blue, so we are very happy with this color.
Many synagogues in Romania have disappeared, either were destroyed or just fallen into disrepair. I guess it's very important that a place like this has been preserved. What's happened to it since its closure as a place of worship in '66?
Well, for some years it was closed, but in 1978 we actually became a museum, and this is thanks to Chief Rabbi Moses Rosen, who was our leader, a religious leader and a civil leader, and he decided that this synagogue becomes a museum, which we are thankful for this. And actually all the synagogues that are restored in the country are done with the money of the Jewish community, but also with the help of the government, which is a very important thing. The Federation of the Jewish Communities is helped by the government for the repairing of the monuments.
As one walks in, as with all synagogues, the ark is in front of you. There are no pews here, no chairs here anymore. There are 2 galleries for ladies above. But down on the main floor where most of the exhibits are, I think you can say the exhibits are really split into 2. To the right, which you're going to tell me about now, is the history.
The history of the existence of the Jews on this territory actually is starting with the 2nd century and goes up until the present day.
You said the 2nd century. What evidence have you got that there was a Jewish presence here?
Well, we've got a coin from the Bar Kokhba period, and we've got also some signs that are not in our collection, but we know that the Jews were here because they left signs of names that are Jewish, but in other languages like Greek language or the Latin language, but they were Jewish names. And after we have a gravestone from the 18th century, but we know that there is also in the cemetery there are stones from the 16th century, very old stones. So the existence of the Jews on this territory is very long. We also have a book about the travels of Benjamin de Tudela, who mentioned the existence of Jews on the north of the Danube in the 12th century, because he visited this area in 1170.
As with all Jewish museums, particularly in Europe, it's impossible to have a full display without talking about the Second World War, the Shoah, the Holocaust. I don't want you to go into the details necessarily of what you display, but how do you take the decision of what size the Shoah plays in a museum where I guess people are coming not only to be educated, but also to have an enjoyable experience, maybe?
Exactly. This is a very good question. Obviously, Shoah and Holocaust has an important and critical place in our exhibit, but we are a museum that speaks about life. And we celebrate life through our exhibits and through the place, the objects that describe the celebrations, the holidays, the normal life. Holocaust is part of our life. We always have to remember it. But it's not all our exhibition concentrated on. We concentrate on exhibiting life and on celebrating life with music and art and whatever makes a Jewish home happy. This is a Gregor for a synagogue. It's very old. It dates in the 18th century, so it's in wood, and it's a magnificent exhibit. It looks very strange, and nobody knows what it is until we say what it is.
This must be 3 feet high. It's got one very thin and cracked piece of wood on it because of overuse, and so hopefully you playing it now isn't going to damage it too much. This is something that is used during the Purim holiday when the name of Haman, who was the enemy of the Jews in Persia at the time, when his name is mentioned, then that noise is used to block it out. And this is part of the other side of the museum, the left side, which is much more about Jewish life.
And we show objects, old and new, that describe a Jewish home or a Jewish life in everything that we have, books, objects, ceremonial objects, and we want to show that life goes on and we are still here to speak about our culture and our heritage, and we are happy with music and celebrations. Again, I mention it because music is part of our life.
We'll get on to music in a sec, but before that, above on the top 2 floors, you have artwork from famous painters from Romania and also some from beyond.
These are Jewish painters born in Romania in our collection. It's a very important collection, and we show all types of techniques, all types of styles, from the classicism to expressionism and surrealism, and we exhibit names like Margareta Asterian and Eva Cerbu up until Victor Brauner, Marcel Janco and Maxi. So these are famous names outside of Romania, but we are proud to have them in our collection as well.
If anybody wants to know more You've given out the address already. You can do it again. Is there a website, or how else can be in touch?
Yes, you can find us on the Google. You can find us on Facebook. There you just search in English the Jewish History and Culture Museum, Dr. Nicolae Cajal. You will find us there.
So you are literally going to play us out of the museum. So thank you so much for your time. But tell us what it is that you're touching right now and what we're going to hear.
This is a patephone with a vinyl that comes from the States. Well, actually, the song is Romanian song in Yiddish, they called, but the melody I discovered is also common for Romanian folklore piece. So it's actually Romanians and Jews had the same folklore, and we're very, very happy to hear this.
Hello.
Hey, how are you feeling?
Ouch.
No, really. What does that mean? You're coming or you're not coming?
Oh, I'm coming. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
You're just a martyr, aren't you? You want everybody to feel some sympathy.
A lot of sympathy. Big R from all the people listening out there.
1, 2, 3.
Ah.
Yeah, you had to do it because nobody else did. Anyway, it's been a great morning. The weather it's chilly, but really nice. It started with a bit of rain in the morning. I think rain's predicted tonight. But during the day, it's crisp. It's beautiful walking weather. I'm not doing that much walking out and about because I'm getting a car from place to place. But yeah, having a great time thus far. Ooh, I've got an idea. Since I'm pretty much at halfway through my day, and we always do a fact file at this point, if I send you over some facts and whatever, will you record it for me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll send something over a little bit later on, and if you could record it at this point, that would be fantastic.
Excellent.
Bucharest Fact File. Bucharest Henry Coanda International Airport has no direct flights to the US, but can be reached directly via most major European hubs. The 2.5-hour flight from Tel Aviv can be made with Arkia, El Al, High Sky, Ryanair, Tarom and Wizz Air. Bucharest North Railway Station is accessible from the airport by train 24 hours a day. The journey takes 25 minutes. Bus 783 takes around 40 minutes from the airport to the city centre. A 3-day integrated transport pass costs around 40 lei or $8.50. We stayed at the Novotel city centre. Bucharest has many 5-star hotels including the Marmaris Autograph, JW Marriott Grand, Radisson Blu, Hilton Athene Palace, Epoch, Suter Palace and Sheraton. $100 will buy you 465 Romanian new lei as of December 2022. Bucharest has a temperate climate similar to the northeastern United States with 4 distinct seasons. A highly recommended site to visit is the National Museum of Contemporary Art. Israeli chef Joseph Haddad has 2 main restaurants in Bucharest, Cajal and Mace by Joseph Haddad. Kosher restaurants in Bucharest include Bereshit, Moise and Avraham.
Hello, I'm Alexandra Rusu. I'm the curator of the Museum of Ages, Casa Filipescu Cesianu in Bucharest, part of the Bucharest Municipality Museum.
So there are 12 elements to this museum all over town. Why is yours the best?
Ours is, of course, the best because it is a new museum in the capital city of Romania. It is an urban anthropology museum, so it's also a new concept. Also because it is situated in a historical boyar family house from the beginning of the 19th century, which maintains parts of the original structure.
Many museums that one visits in life take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Maybe we could even use the term higgledy-piggledy. But here, again, because you've been able to create something anew, it's very heavily thematic. Tell us about the thinking that went into this museum.
Well, it's complex because we are talking about urban anthropology, so it's a holistic discipline that encompasses the entire anthropological aspects of the human life, from physical anthropology to the cultural anthropology. The main theme of this museum is 300 years of history in Bucharest, of family life, intimacy, relationships inside the family, relationships between generations.
If you look around the museum, it has the usual mix of costumes, of furniture, there are some weapons that would have been used in a home, and so on. So how do you make that jump from what other museums have into this urban anthropology?
I think it's mainly by discourse, which we adapt, of course, depending of our visitors, of their age. Also, because we have another additional concept of the museum that I think it fuses all the other elements, the objects and the discourse. It's the technological road of the museum. And through these pieces of technologies that we can see in each century, we create also a linear discourse about how technology has changed our life at home throughout the ages in Bucharest.
So just to give an example of that, there was communication all the way up to the telephone, or there were musical instruments and how those became record players, and you also had VHS players and so on. In your opinion, what's more important, the sort of you and me talking things through or getting to press buttons?
I think both ways, and especially for children, the level of interactivity is really, really important, because in our daily practice, we can see that the discourse can be as applied to their age as possible, but still they become a little bit restless, so they need constant attention. Technology brings them together. It also creates discourse and interaction between them and between us and them. We manage to cope with this by doing lots of workshops. We bring some museum educators that increase the level of interactivity with the permanent exhibition. For families, for example, for me is really interesting and revealing to see them how they interact in connections to what they see, to the objects they see, and in the context of the family. It creates a lot of sometimes contradictions, sometimes questions.
Do you know which my favorite room was?
Your favorite room? Please tell me.
The maps.
Oh, the maps, yes. You've told me that you would like to have your own room filled with maps, and I hope you have the Vatican map room.
That would be very nice, if only I could afford it. On the maps, and maybe this will explain the concept, maps don't necessarily fit in with that idea of family and so on. So what are you trying to show, and how do you do it?
So we are trying to show, first of all, the development of Bucharest from, let's say, the small sum of villages with 2 or 3 main roads that was in the beginning, in the 15th century, in the 14th and 15th centuries, and the development until the nowadays. This is one discourse. Afterwards, we have a really metaphorical discourse because we put together images of people that inhabited those places. So I think the impact is really powerful to see exactly how our physiognomy, how people change in respect to their, for example, attire, their posture, the way they walked on the streets and everything else. So this is another type of image we would like to create.
How does a textile artist make the jump to museum curator?
Well, I think I've always been interested in the theoretical part of my domain, apart from the practice, and I still love the practice of my textile art domain. I really was interested in finding more about the culture, the textile culture and the material culture. So that's why for me it was a leap of faith, I think, but it's really, really rewarding.
If anybody wants to know more, either just to have a look online or to come and visit, how can they do so?
First, you can find us in our museum, which is on Calea Victoriei, 151 in Bucharest, really, really close to Piața Victoriei, the Victoria Square, near the government building. Or you can find us on our website. You can just search for the Bucharest Municipality Museum, and you will see the interesting and important offer of our 12 museum and collections. And also we have Facebook, Instagram pages, so please feel free to search for Casa Filipescu Cesianu or the Museum of Ages.
It's been a wonderful, I think we've been here for 2 hours. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you also. It's been a pleasure, and I really liked talking to you, and I hope you will come again. Also, your listeners, please do come to Bucharest and visit us.
This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast Travel Edition with David Harris. As you've already heard, Mark unfortunately is not with me. He will be flying out, actually, as we're recording this particular interview, and joining me for the follow-up podcast on Bucharest. However, in a few seconds' time, you're going to hear his voice because he is going to be the translator of my next guest, who is Joseph Haddad, who is the chef and the owner of one of the top restaurants in Bucharest, Cajal by Joseph Haddad. And before I actually say hello to him, I should also point out that for those of you who watch these things, he is one of the judges on MasterChef Romania. Joseph Haddad, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I thought we were doing this in Hebrew.
My English is good, but Hebrew it's much better. My Romanian is much better in English.
What brought you to Romania in the first place?
אני הייתי השף בקינג דיוויד ירושלים.
I was the executive chef at the King David in Jerusalem, but after 10 years in the hotel, it was time to move on. I wanted to experience something new. An Israeli was opening a fancy restaurant in Bucharest. He wanted an Israeli chef and made me an offer. I said to him, "Where is Romania? Show me on a map." He told me he'd take me to see. He said it's just a 2.5-hour flight from Israel. My late wife also gave me a push to go for it. She said, "Why don't you try it for a year? I'll be a telephone call away." Anyway, there was nothing here, no decent fish or spices. We're talking 6 years after the revolution that toppled Ceausescu in 1989.
אחרי הרבולוציה שנפל צ'אושסקו בדצמבר 1989.
So at that stage, what are you doing? What type of cooking?
I introduced authentic French cooking the way I'd learnt it.
But where did you find the ingredients?
Somebody would visit me and they'd bring me a package of saffron, turmeric and cumin. People had no idea where I was getting the ingredients from. Duck breast, quail and fish such as bream, sole and red mullet.
Denise, Sol, Barbunia.
So from what you're saying, it sounds like the fact that you were a foreigner was actually an advantage.
I
came from outside and the people here in Bucharest saw me as being very different. I taught them everything I had learned when I was much younger. even when I was in the Dan Hotel in Haifa when I was just 15.
במלון דן בחיפה, כשהייתי בן 15.
You worked in the Dan Carmel, great view. You worked in the King David, great view of the old city. Both kosher. How do you go from kosher to, if you'll forgive the expression, the world is your oyster, or the oyster is your world?
כשאתה עושה מטבח לא כשר,
If you go from non-kosher to kosher, that's really tough. It's chemistry. How do you make the butter when you're serving meat? Because of this, I reckon Israeli chefs are the best in the world. It was much easier for me. In Israel, I'd never worked with shrimps or lobster. But the truth is, over here, I try to work them as little as possible. We even have mezuzot on the doorposts of my restaurants. My mum said if I open a restaurant in Romania, I mustn't cook pork.
אסור לך לעבוד עם חזיר. זה מה שהיא אמרה לי.
So how do you get from a new person here, yes, a good chef, but without a name, having to find your ingredients, to becoming one of, if not the top chef in Romania?
לאט עשיתי ארוחות לאנשי טלוויזיה.
Slowly, I started cooking for Romanian TV personalities. The first president of the new Romania would eat with me, municipality leaders, even footballers like the great Haji. It was by word of mouth.
2022, 2023, by the time this is broadcast, where are you up to?
עושים תוכנית, קנינו את הלייסנס של טופ שף.
A few years back, Romanian TV bought the license for what used to be called Top Chef, and they asked me to be the top judge. We did 3 seasons in 3 years. Then I took a break and opened my first restaurant as owner and chef. It worked amazingly till COVID struck, so it closed. By then I had also opened Cajal, where we are sitting now. It's doing really well. We've expanded and created an open kitchen. Right opposite us is the largest opera house in Romania. People come here every year for the concerts. So I reopened the other restaurant, now called Mace, just a few yards away. And now, thank God, I've achieved what I planned.
וברוך השם, הגעתי למה שחשבתי.
Chef Joseph Yossi Haddad, thank you very much. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing, Mark?
Good. How's it going?
Yeah, are you feeling better?
I'm fit to fly. If I wake you up at 3 a.m, you know I made it.
I certainly hope so. It's been just a phenomenal day. I'm exhausted. I've been on my feet from first thing this morning till just now, so it's been, good, 12, 15 hours, but very, very well worth it.
Done anything interesting?
Yeah, really fascinating. So there were 2 museums, galleries of a non-Jewish type, one looking at artwork, one looking at what I believe was called urban anthropology, which was fascinating. Then there were 2 synagogal type visits, one to the Choral Temple and one to the museum, both of which were fascinating. And to round it off, that meeting with Chef Joseph Haddad, or Yossi as he told me to call him.
How was the food, most importantly?
The food looks amazing, tastes amazing. Lots of people coming in and out of both of his restaurants that are near each other. In fact, the other one that I didn't visit, which is basically a meat place, there were queues of people lining up outside. Many Israelis inside, as well as locals and people from around the world. So it looks like he's doing a roaring business.
Is there a reason there are so many Israelis there?
There are a variety of reasons. 1, it's only a 2-hour 45 flight. 2, Israelis love to travel. 3, he's an Israeli and birds of a feather love to flock together. And 4, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, there's a casino around the corner as well, and Israelis love to spiel. It's time to say a couple of thank yous. One is to Monica and Karina at the Romanian Embassy in Tel Aviv. Also, a very big thank you to all of the team at Bucharest City Hall at the municipality for all of your help. Thanks to all of the guests. Mark, thank you for not being here because I've been able to flap my wings a little bit.
Thank you for taking on all the strain while I've been at home with my feet up.
Do you want to do the bit about, people subscribing and stuff?
If you want to make my day and make me feel better, then it's important that you subscribe to this podcast. It will make me feel healthy again.
There you go, folks. Let's all subscribe to Make Mark Healthy.
Make a wish come true.
Time for the quiz question and answer. Just the one question, which was, there are 3 regions of Romania: Moldavia, Transylvania, and the third one in which Bucharest lies. Can you name the third one, Mark?
Cluj.
That's part of Transylvania. The answer is Wallachia. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening to this podcast. Mark, looking forward to seeing you very soon and for our next podcast from Romania. And I wish you only good health and a very pleasant flight.
All mine. Speak to you soon.
Take care, folks. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.